Patan city is believed to be existed before 2300 years. The name of the Patan at 4th century CE was Upagram. Upa literally means a wooden post, whereas gram means a town or settlement. It is also known as Yala by the Newa people, the native people of Kathmandu Valley. The word Yala means the same as Yupa. By the 10th century, the city acquired a new Sanskrit name, Lalit, further elaborated with city denoting suffixes, first Karma and Bruma, then Pura, Nagara and Patana. Patan is the Nepali simplification of Lalit Patana, used at 7th century by then king. Today, Lalitpur is an alternative name for Patan. Patan Durbar Square lies on the crossing of two trade routes, east-west route Pulchok to Tyaga and north-south route Sanghamu to Manga. The palace is oriented parallel to the main street at north-south route. Basically, the palace lies in the center of the city. The Malla dynasty was a ruling dynasty of Nepal from the 12th century to the 18th century. The architectural masterpieces, art and literature flourished in Nepal under the patronage of Malla king. Yacha Malla was the last Malla king of United Nepal, who divided his kingdom among his sons. Most noted Malla kings were Pratap Malla of Kathmandu, Siddhi Narsimha Malla of Lalitpur, and Phupatindra Malla of Bhaktapur. Three cities in Kathmandu Valley, Kathmandu, Lalitpur, and Bhaktapur, were the melting pot of art and culture for a long time in the history. The Malla dynasty rulers ruled the Kathmandu Valley till Prithvinarayan Shah conquered the valley from them in 1768. The last Malla king were Jayaprakash Malla of Kathmandu, Tej Narsingh Malla of Lalitpur, and Ranjit Malla of Bhaktapur. Initially, only Char Narayan Temple, Manga Hiti, and Sri Vidya Temple, which is at the center of Muchuka at present, existed as the temples. Before Muchuka existed, the Degutale temple was on ground. Remaining constructions were done due course of time. There was no Bhandarkhal garden behind Sundari Chuka, with ponds and gardens. It is guessed that there might have been monasteries and residential buildings before the palace was constructed.
The palace square is composed of two parts, private palace and a public square in front. Public space has temples for the citizens, whereas the private palace has the temples for the kings. Lots of temples were made due to division of states and restricted entry to important temples of other states. Since there are many Malla congregational festivals which come to Durbar Square, open spaces with temples are seen in square. The size and shapes of spaces are corresponding to the kind of festivals held. The palace complex is constructed in the period of 60 to 70 years by three kings in succession, namely Siddhi Narsimha Malla, Srinivas Malla, and Yog Narendra Malla. The palace is the composition of courtyards with different temples. These temples and courtyards were constructed by different kings for their own use and various activities such as living of the king, Sundari Chuka for worship, Mu Chuka for sleeping, Kesab Narayan Chuka, etc. The palace is preserved till date as the 17th century Malla court. Even though it is now used for museum, school and minor government offices, most of the part of the palace is open to the public inspection. The Bhandar Khal, the garden area behind the palace, is an open-air museum of stone sculptures and inscriptions. The Patan Archaeological Garden. In Patan Durbar Square, there are 3 courtyards in succession in straight line such as Sundari Chuka, Mu Chuka and Kesab Narayan Chuka, aligned from south to north respectively. Between Mu Chuka and Kesab Narayan Chuka, there is Degu Tali temple, and behind the temple there is a regular court named Talizu Chuka. There are 15 temples and other form major architecture in a public square in front of the palace. Some of them were existed before the palace was built by Malla kings. Monga Hiti at the north of the palace is the oldest structure in Patan Durbar Square, which dated back to Lichavi period. 3 temples, Char Narayan, Degutale and Sri Vidya temple at the center of Muchuka were built before Malla reign. There are 2 types of temples constructed in the square. One is Nepalese Tier temple and another is Shikhara temple. Nepalese Tier temple is most vividly distinguished by its frequent use of tiered hipped roofs, a strikingly effective feature. Shikhara temple is rising tower-like in structure which literally translates to a mountain. Both types of temple are based on mandala and is 3-dimensional representation of mandala. Mani Ganesh, Bhimsen, Vishwanath, Char Narayan, Narayan, Hari Shankar and Vishweswar temples are Nepalese Tier temple, and Krishna, Narsimha, Krishna and Shiva temples are Shikhara temple. The area occupied by the palace today had Lichavi occupation. In the transitional period, that is after Lichavi period, 9th to 13th century, the area became the site of the mansions of the principal nobles, the Pradhan Mahapatra. One of them, Vamthuni Ham, stayed in the area. Another Pradhan Mahapatra named Purandar Simha, who controlled Patan for much of the late 16th century, established 2 temples, Nepalese-styled Char Narayan temple in 1566 AD and other a Shikhara temple in 1589 AD, both facing the present palace. Mahapatra named Sivasimha built Degutale in 1597 AD. The existing palace was mostly completed under the reign of 2 Malla kings, Siddhi Narasimha Malla and Srinivas Malla, father and son, who ruled from 1619 to 1684 AD. Later, King Yog Narendra Malla also continued his ancestors' tradition. Siddhi Narasimha Malla also created 2 temples in public square in front of the palace. Vishweswar or Vishwanath is Nepalese-styled Shiva temple, was built in 1627 AD. The other one is the famous and wonderful Shikhara temple dedicated to Lord Krishna. It was built in 1637 AD.